The content presented in this podcast and YouTube show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health or a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard or seen on this show. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of this show are not responsible for any adverse effects resulting from your use of or reliance on any information presented.
Andrea, can you hear us?
Many years ago, I died for 26 seconds. There are so many people in this world that have experienced life events that have led to their soul purpose. Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea will bring you these significant life events that demonstrate how to use those moments for guidance and life purpose. These are our stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up Your Soul with Andrea Lynn. Today's guest is a best-selling author, and she's here to talk to us about spirituality. Let's welcome Catherine Duncan. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good. Great to meet you today.
So I actually want to start out with a personal story because I know you're going to be able to relate to this. And the story is when my grandfather was passing away, he was dying of cancer, and I have been taking care of him through this period. I was there every day. Towards the end, I started spending the night there as well. And the night that he died, I walked into his room and I could feel that his soul was gone. He was still breathing because he's hooked up to all the things. Like, I mean, you could tell, you could see him breathing, and we knew his body was still alive, I guess you would say. And I remember telling my dad, I said, "Hey, Dad," I said, "I don't think he's with us anymore, but you can go in and, say your goodbye if you want." And so my dad went in the room, and actually I have never asked him this, but I don't know if he could feel it or couldn't. I don't know that he could. I think he was maybe, I don't want to say more emotionally connected or involved in the situation, but for me, I could just feel it. It was the strangest thing because I had never experienced that, where there's a body there, it's breathing, it has a heartbeat, but I could tell there was no soul anymore in the body. And so I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, because I know, well, share your experience with the audience and why you can talk about this.
Mhm. For years, I was a chaplain, a hospice chaplain, and I was a chaplain also in our level 1 trauma hospitals. So I've been with many people at the end of life and dying. So, yes, I've experienced that with a number of people. The one story to share also in the moment, similar to yours, was my father-in-law, who was very quickly suddenly dying actually of sepsis. And my whole family, my kids, my husband and I flew down to, he was in Naples, Florida, and we went into the hospital. They removed all life support, and the same kind of thing happened, where he was still, you could tell there was still some breath in his body. But all of a sudden for me, I felt this huge shift energetically in the room. It was just like, and like he left. I mean, even, and then within an hour, his body completely shut down. But so here's my understanding of this. I've been contemplating life and why we're alive. And I think we're a soul in a body for a short time. I think your soul, I mean, when you die, your soul leaves your body, your soul, your essence is eternal. And some people in the dying process, their soul can leave their body before their body actually dies, or right at the end. It's this liminal space. So I think that's what you experience. And I've experienced this with a number of people, but with my father-in-law, Jim Duncan, it was notable. It was really like, oh, wow, noticeable.
Yeah, it was the same for us, where I think it was I don't think it was more than 2 hours, like 3 tops, I would say, but I really think it was like you're saying, it was like within an hour or 2, then everything shut down and there was no more breathing and he was,
Mhm.
pronounced dead. But I wasn't there the moment that there was the shift, and maybe I felt the shift and that's why I walked in the room because I did go in to check on him, and maybe I had felt the shift in the other room and then went in there. And after he died, he would talk to me all the time, but I thought I was crazy because I had been with him so much through the last few months, and so I thought, "No, I'm just used to hearing him in my head, like, every day." It's kinda like you leave a concert and you can still hear the drums, right? Like, you
Mhm.
still hear it, and so I thought it was kinda like that, and I was also like, "I'm going crazy. You've gotta stop. Leave me alone." And so, eventually he did, but can you talk on that too, where spirit comes back to you after they leave? Well, leave, but don't leave?
Yeah, I write about this in my new book, Everyday Awakening. When I was a chaplain with in the Minneapolis St. Paul area Fairview Health System, Fairview Hospice, I was with people dying every single day. And what happened is within days to a week after people passed, many people came in the middle of the night to see me. I would open my eyes and like there they would be, and then there they'd be gone.
Yeah,
So for me, it was just a confirmation that our spirit goes on. Death is
yeah,
not an end. And I witnessed this so many times to the extent that I had to put up an energy boundary. I mean, like, I would go to bed at night and say, "You can't come within 20 feet and wake me up." It was just too much.
yeah.
So, yeah, I experienced that quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I've had the same problem too in my bedroom. I'm like, "This is my, like, sanctuary. You cannot come in here."
Mhm.
Like, I need my sleep. I'm like, "If you have a message for me, you have
Yeah.
to bring it to me when I'm trying to be awake, not right now." Like,
Mhm.
but, that goes into why do they come to us so much at night, right? It's because we're quieting our minds or we're trying to quiet our minds and we're giving them the space. Because a lot of people ask, well, okay, I want to hear my loved ones or I want to have
Mhm.
these intuitive hits and I want to hear guidance from God or whatever divine spiritual being you believe like controls the universe. They ask how can they tap into that? And for me, the first response is always to give it the space. Quiet your mind and give it the space. Because if you're sitting there thinking about all these thoughts and your to do list or whatever you're in the middle of, how do you expect them to? You think they're just going to be like, knock, knock, like, excuse me, get out of the way, personal thoughts over there. Like, it just doesn't work quite like that.
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes it does a little bit, but if you can really give it that space, you're able to get more of that intuitive thinking happening. But what would you say for people
Mhm.
trying to kind of tap into the other side?
Mhm. I share this in my private practice. I've learned this personally and professionally that I really believe every one of us gets guidance. We do, every one of us, but it's not when we're in our busy thinking mind. It's when we're in the moment. We come, like just what you're saying. You come into the moment. Our body's always in the present moment. Come in your breath, feel your hands, just come in and settle in and find a little bit of space and stillness. And
Mhm,
that's where the words clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentient, it's all there. Some of
mhm,
us might see or hear or sense, or you get this like internal nudging, a feeling. I promise you, every single person, every one of us, everyone listening right now, we all can receive guidance, but we have to be present. We have to be open and just tuning in. And again, when we're in our busy thinking, ego mind, you can't, it's
yeah.
not there. You can't find it there.
No, and I think we also have to let go of expectations because
Mhm.
I think everybody thinks they're gonna hear it one way or see it, one way, and then when it's not happening that way, there's this frustration and, "Oh, it's not happening," or what but then it's like, "Well, where are you right now?" You're in your ego, right? And you're in your mind,
Mhm.
and you're still not giving it that space, but I know I saw a clip on your Instagram, and you were talking about how you see and you briefly just mentioned too, how, like, spirit would come in and then whoosh, they're gone. So I think everybody can see things a little bit differently and experience all these gifts in a different way. And so don't have any expectations. Because even when I've worked with mentors, they're like, okay, do it like this, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I take everything they say and I apply it, but then I just kind of let things
Mhm.
unfold however they're meant to unfold. And then I always find that things work a little bit differently for me than they do for somebody else.
Yep, I would agree with that. Again, all of us receive guidance. I find it so interesting. I mean, if you even study Albert Einstein, and he talks about his knowings came to him when he was still, when there was silence.
Hmm.
The knowings popped in, the knowings came, the understandings. And this is true for so many people. I've been a voracious reader in the spiritual genre since a teenager when I was young and really on the edge of life and death, facing my own death.
Hmm.
Um, but that's true. It's like it's in that stillness. Even I'll just share, I'm a big fan of Lenny Kravitz. And I saw him this fall. My daughter and I, my 28-year-old daughter and I flew into Las Vegas to see him. It was so much fun.
How
And
fun. Yeah.
his latest album, Human, is so great. And he had an interview and he's like, someone's asking, well, how'd you come up with this album? And he's talked about in the middle of the night, like the early, even starting into the early morning, the words, the lyrics started coming to him, and then
Hmm.
he'd wake up and he'd write it, and I just again, there's so much beyond the tangible world of what we're seeing when we can just be silent and feel and sense and hear and just drop into our soul. That's where all the ease and the peace, guidance, love with the divine, it's all there.
Absolutely. So go ahead, talk about your experience with, because you briefly touched on it for a second there, but like facing death. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I have had 2 experiences coming close to dying. The first one when I was a child, I was 11 years old. I was 10, I was just turning 11, and I was suddenly gravely ill. My parents finally they took me to the hospital. I was diagnosed with a really rare childhood cancer. They told my
Mhm.
parents I had a 20% chance to live. They never told me this, I was so little.
Yeah, that's good.
And but this is back in the '70s, and they had no program for children. No one talked to me. And my family, my parents, I felt their love, but no one talked to me at all about anything that was happening. And I quickly felt that I was between life and death. I felt like
Mm.
I was just on this tightrope. And I, out of nowhere, started to pray. And my prayer was, could I live to be 20? I just thought, if I could live to be 20, I would experience all of life. And I prayed, could I live to be 20? And I kept praying and praying. And then not long after, this feeling of just peace flooded my body and it took my breath away. I was just like, and at such a young age, I look back and it was a knowing. I knew I just had a knowing I was going to live. I wasn't alone. And that cracked me open to there's so much more in this life. And that set me on this path that I'm on today.
So I'm curious what you've gone through since then, and if you feel like looking back, God kind of made that event happen where the cancer happened, where you eventually leaned into having this faith and trust, and if you feel like that was placed upon you at that age because you were really going to need faith and trust in God for other points in your life.
Mhm,
Do you feel like that
mhm.
was a piece of it?
I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but I think at times through our lifetime, we may be given exit points. And I really think I had a choice to live or die. I really do. And what I went through was really intense, all the treatments, everything I went through, but I would never be the person I am today had I not gone through that. And this drug came in that year from Turkey. My father, who's been now gone almost 20 years, was an entrepreneur, had multiple companies. He demanded this drug be given to me then, and the doctors agreed, and this drug that they gave me is now standard treatment. I mean, the treatment for what I had is now at 80% survival rate.
Wow.
Um so I see the influence of, I chose I wanted to live. It wasn't my time. I then went through high school, college. I went into the business world because I have 5 older siblings. Everyone is in business, and that was the path but I ended up having in my 30s a near death experience, whitewater rafting with Time Warner on a corporate trip. And that finally was another turning point of just after that experience, I survived. I was just like, I'm done. I need to really listen. Why am I here? What am I doing? And it gave me the courage. And luckily, my husband agreed, like, yep, 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 follow. I left Time Inc. to study theology, of which, my family, my siblings were like, "What?" And my father, I remember him yelling at me at the kitchen table, yelling in front of my 7-year-old son, leaving Time Warner to study, he thought geology, and I'm like, "No, theology." But I've listened deeply ever since to this day, to the guidance. Yeah,
Yeah.
shaped my life.
Yeah, I think what you're saying on the exit points is a huge thing because
Mhm,
I talk about that a lot with people, and not everybody sees it the same way for sure. But I really feel like God places these forks in the road, which like you're saying, we can call that an exit point, right? And I think they're also our chance to lean into Him allowing us to make a
mhm,
choice. Like, are we going to trust and put faith in the obstacle that he has put in front of us? Are we gonna use that for good and try to push
mhm,
through and, like, follow his guidance? Or are we just gonna stay in our logical minds and just quit? And I think these exit points are very much God-given,
mhm,
and I know some people don't feel that way. They just feel like crap happens in
mhm,
life, and they're just like, "No, that's just something that's happening," and I really don't believe that. I don't believe anything happens just because. I believe every little thing happens for a reason, and so I think when we're given these exit points, it's to see, are you willing to grow more, or are you willing to just quit? Where are you at with your
yeah.
journey in your faith?
Yep, I agree completely. And I think, it's a choice. And that a lot I have in my book, I have 42 exercises. How are you choosing to live? Do you want, and every one of us, to learn to come into the moment, learn what it feels like to be present, learn what it feels like to open our heart and feel flow. These are all a level of consciousness and choice and practicing. We can heal. And it's easy to say right now, yes, we can all heal. It
Mhm.
takes strength and courage, especially if you've gone through difficult family of origin, upheaval, crisis. Yes. But on the other hand, I have witnessed so many people that I've worked with and also personally how you can heal. And it's some hard work, but we can all come into why we're on this earth. Who are we? Why are we here? Why are we choosing to heal or not? And some people don't choose that. And it's like, it's okay. That's just this lifetime. This is where they're at. And they're only, life is this. And
Mhm.
that is how some people choose to be in life. And again, choice, it's a choice.
Mhm. It's a choice for sure. Let's actually go back to the whitewater rafting though, because I think people are gonna listen and be like, "Well, wait, I wanna hear what happened." What happened on that day?
Again, I was on a timing corporate trip for their top salespeople, my husband and I, and there was a small group of us, and we went whitewater rafting. We were in Costa Rica, and I just felt so much trepidation. We get to the river, remote area. The river was flooded from rains. It was a level 3, level 4 rapid. We were on a boat with, I think it was 8 people, and if you can believe this, the head of our ref is like, "I'm part of the Costa Rica Olympic team," and I recently met someone else who whitewater rafted in Costa Rica, and their guide said the same thing, and I'm like, "Fascinating." Anyway, all the rafts, because of the big rapids, were going around the rapids, and our guy was like, "No, we're going right down the middle," and I was in the corner, life vest, helmet, and I couldn't sustain. The rapids were so treacherous, and next thing you know, I plunged deep underwater, and it was black all around me, and I'm like, "This is it. I'm gonna die." And I had this flash of seeing my young children
Oh, no.
and, seeing myself when I was sick as a child, and all of a sudden, this white light surrounded my body, and this voice, crystal clear, said, "Living or dying is fine." And again, this peace
Mhm.
flooded my body. And I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen, but it gave me the courage to just let go. And I remember I was
Mhm.
like in this ball and I just like spread out my arms and legs. And next thing you know, I came out from under a rapid. They pulled me by my life vest onto a boat. I was in shock. I couldn't talk. We had to continue down the rapids to get off because we were in such a remote area. And I remember
Yeah.
just praying, like, please, let me survive getting down this rapid. And it was just, didn't talk about what happened. And it was life changing. Interestingly, it was about a day later, 2 days later, flying home to Minneapolis. And in the taxi to my home in South Minneapolis, I happened to call my mom. I'd say religious, not spiritual so much.
Mhm.
And before I even got to tell her what happened to me, she's like, Catherine, she'd never shared a dream in her life. And she's like, Catherine, I had this dream that I slipped into a river and I almost drowned and I woke up. It was exactly the day that this happened. And it was just for me, it was a turning point of like, I'm done. The glamour of Time Magazine, I had the best print job in the Twin Cities, making great money, everything, but I'm like, "This isn't it." And it gave me the courage within a few weeks, I gave my notice and started me on the path that I'm on today.
I'm curious how you would guide somebody that doesn't get the chance, like we've had, to have these near-death experiences because they are very life-changing, but
Mhm,
it is hard to give somebody the same perspective without going through it. It's a whole body feeling when you experience all of that, right? I mean,
mhm,
it all just comes so fast at you. But how do you guide somebody that is feeling just kind of, I don't know, like, my life just isn't super
mhm,
purposeful? How would you guide them to get to the point that you've gotten without them actually having to experience a
mhm.
near-death experience?
And the type of person you just described, wanting, longing for more, is the core of my practice now in my private
Mhm.
practice, and I see everything from women, middle-aged to elderly to executives, doctors, attorneys, people that say, even some say, gosh, my life, I have everything and I feel numb, I feel empty, I feel
Yeah.
annoying, something's missing. And it's just the basics of starting with, where are you all day long? Starting to understand that we're not our mind. And when you can realize, like, I can watch my thoughts and I can watch my feelings, I'm that stillness, that essence, that awareness behind that, and leading people, even I've had this many times, leading people in a minute or two of breath exercise where all of a sudden there's just like, there's a knowing comes through that
Mhm.
they're not living head up, even though that's how they've been living most of their life. So
Mhm.
little practices to introduce how to feel into the moment, the preciousness of life is a lovely starting point.
What about questions? Are there certain questions that you ask people to consider and think about to have a really deep reflection on their satisfaction of their life?
Mhm. Absolutely. A discussion normally would include, discussion like, who am I? Why am I here? What do I want? Here's a great question that I've used for years in my own personal life and in practice, but what is life giving? What gives you life? And paying attention. What gives you life on a daily basis? Love, joy, peace. From a Christian standpoint, they'll talk about, the fruits of the spirit. I mean, but if this is true of all faith traditions across the world, and I've studied many from being a chaplain, but what gives you life? And then what depletes you? What takes life
Mhm.
away? And just
Mhm.
starting to tune in, building, I love to share with people awareness. Where am I? How am I feeling? Just noticing a little bit, just even a little bit each day. Where am I? How am I feeling? Where am I feeling guided? What am I passionate about? Those are all questions that we'll start to discuss.
I really love that question of what depletes you. I think that's a great thing to think about and recognize, and then once you realize, like, what is depleting me? well, then the next question is, how can I eliminate
Mhm,
this?
mhm,
Or how can I see it differently and not see it as something that is depleting me if I feel like I really can't remove it from my life? And I think sometimes people, at first, they're frustrated with the fact that they've been doing something that hasn't been fulfilling them, or like,
mhm,
I haven't been living in my purpose and I shouldn't have been doing this. I knew it. I should have followed my dreams 20 years ago, or, something that they really felt passionate about. And I think they really need to remember that we experience every moment on purpose, and we are where we are, and we are meant to be exactly where we are. And so it's okay that you didn't follow it then, because it wasn't
mhm,
meant for you then, because it wouldn't have unfolded the same way it's about to unfold. So people need to not have any regrets on not
mm-mm.
following dreams earlier.
No, and I don't quite define this in my book, but over time, a thought about, again, awakening.
Mhm.
I do talk about this in my book about opening into your heart, your soul, the oneness with God, the universe. But the path to awakening, I really have seen it three ways. One path is people going through crisis, upheaval, a dire diagnosis. I mean, that was my path, not as
Mhm.
common.
Yeah.
Another path is people that are searching and yearning and wanting, a lot of people, the type of people I work with in my private practice. And then a third is people that are already on a spiritual path. Maybe they have a meditation practice, a yoga practice. So just being mindful of where you're at in your life. Is your life
Mhm.
what you want? Are you able to, experience love and peace and joy? And that said, every single person listening right now, every one of us has had moments of wonderment. Here's an example. Late at night, if you live by the ocean or a lake, or the sun setting, and there's a moment where life stops, where there's just like
Mhm.
a the magicalness of just being here now. Every one of us has had that moment, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm talking about, the preciousness of life, feeling it, experiencing it. And I really believe that can be our grounding of where we live from every day.
Mhm. Yeah, I like to envision life as this like capsule of time.
Mhm,
And for me, I don't want to say float, but that's kind of what I do. Like I kind of float above and like outside of myself and just kind of hover down and look at my life. And I look at it like this little timeline. I mean, you could picture it like a ruler if you want, but I picture life as this capsule of time that we get. And it could be 0 to 6 months. I mean, it could be 0 to 2 days, right? It could be 0 to 50, 0 to 90. Who knows what we're going to get on this timeline? But I try to remove myself from my life and I look down on this timeline and it's like, well, what did I fill it with?
mhm,
And do I like what I filled it with? Because so much of this shit doesn't matter that we do in our
mhm,
lives. Like, we are here to be happy and to learn how to live with gratitude and live in grace and joy. And so I just look down at my life and I think, like, all these moments, do they matter? When you're in these moments
mhm,
of extreme frustration or you're hating your job or all these things, it's like, do they matter? You can really remove yourself from your life and think about what really matters.
mhm, mhm. I agree. Also, tuning in, here's another way, tuning in. Where am I? How am I feeling? So it's easy being human, right? To be caught up
Mhm.
in fear, worry, anxiety, anger, just energetically. We're energy. Our bodies are energy. Everything's energy. We have an aura around us that's energy. This is factual. This is research.
Yeah.
So tuning in, are you noticing, wow, I spend a lot of my day, I'm angry, I'm fearful. Those are the lowest vibrational energies that
Yes.
our bodies can hold,
Yes.
versus, I know this is maybe easy to say, but love, joy, peace, thankfulness, highest vibrational energies our bodies can embody. So even just tuning in, how do I live my day? Do I spend my day? And it's easy, of course, being human, living our ego, worry, fear. But okay, and I'm trained and certified in neuroplasticity, how to rewire our brain to
Mhm.
create healthy new neural pathways, and we can create, it's the pathway to healing is feeling your feelings, and again, that can be hard, I know, but the
Yes.
more you can be in the moment, feel your feelings, then there's room for love and peace and joy to come into your life.
Yeah, I know, I 100% know what you're saying, where it's easier said than done. But yeah, I also got certified doing brain rewire as well. So I completely get that. And I had a guest actually that I filmed with recently. I haven't dropped the episode yet, but we can talk about that for a second because it was interesting. And I told her, I was like, reach back out to me like in a month, in a year, like whenever it is. But like, I really think we're having this conversation for a reason. And I really hope that you can maybe
Mm,
change your mind a little bit on this. But she had gone through a cancer journey
mm,
and she was still mad about it, like was
mm,
not happy. There was no gratitude. Basically, she said she was not grateful for the cancer. And but she was talking about how she was so grateful for her life after the cancer and how she had this awareness and just saw life differently and life was so much better and a better relationship with her mom and all these things. And it's like, your life sounds amazing and you don't want to attribute that to the cancer. And like she was like, no, I mean, she's like, well, I mean, maybe, but I'm not going to be grateful for it. And I said, okay, but I said, just remember this: if you're not grateful for the cancer, you are something. You have some sort of emotion towards it, right? And so I was saying, if it's not gratitude, it's not something happy or positive, then it's anger, it's resentment, it's something like that. And I said, you're going to hold on to that frequency.
mhm,
And so I promise you, it serves you best to find a way to figure out how you can be grateful for it.
mhm,
And so that's the whole like brain rewire concept
mhm,
where you find a way to see it differently because you're creating your thoughts. You can choose
mhm,
because and everybody has a different opinion on their journeys and you can have one journey with five different or a million different opinions
mhm,
on how that journey went or should be viewed. And so it just is proof that we can choose and people don't recognize so the importance of what we choose for the
mhm.
emotions.
Mhm. And just the what and curious your thoughts on this. Everything I've studied, I was trained through Rick Hansen, who is a national author, and his book Resilience fabulous. But the four steps for rewiring your brain is true for every model I have studied. And that is number one, first noticing, are you finding yourself worrying, anxious, fearful? Can you name that thought? What's causing you to worry or have fear or anxious? When you name the thought, it calms your nervous system. This is
Mhm.
research based. Number two, can you name the feeling? Wow, I'm actually angry. I mean, when you can name
Yeah.
the feeling, it starts to calm your nervous system. Number three, and this is the hard one, feel the feeling, even just a little. So, you know, I like to hold the word curiosity. When you're curious, you're in a calm state, a parasympathetic state, just like, where do I feel it? I feel it in my stomach, or, just naming where you feel it and just feeling it a little bit, just breathing into that area. Cause I promise you, it'll start to dissipate when we feel it. Feelings aren't permanent, they come, they go.
Mhm.
And then the fourth is just growing the good, positive like affirmation, in this moment I'm okay, or an image. I have two dogs, Bella and Ollie. They're little white poofy dogs, and I'll think of them and my heart just starts to warm. It's marinating in the good, growing, and that grows the positive new neural pathways in your brain. Every
Mhm.
one of us can do this.
Yeah, that's the thing people don't realize though, that we can change the neural pathways, we can
Mhm.
change them. And so the principles I learned really start with looking at your values. I mean,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, this all encompasses some similar traits, I think, with Rewire, but the one I did was looking at your values and understanding why you operate the way you do and what's important to you because everybody has different values. And it's really cool to see when you do these exercises and you're in a relationship, whether it's married or just some sort of committed relationship or even just friendships. But when you see why people do what they do, it's because of their values. And some people just value certain things more than others. And so then you can appreciate their behaviors when you see it that way. And then you really start looking at, like you're saying, you can look at the emotions, like what emotion am I holding on to and why am I holding on to this? And then you start looking at the thoughts, and are you more heavily believing in the negative or the positive here? And usually, when you're stuck in a place, it's because you're more heavily believing all these negative thoughts. So then you can start looking at, well, what are the positives to this feeling that I'm holding on to, this event that created this anxiety? Like, I feel anxious from this event because this event was this, this, and this. And it's all these things that you list out that are usually negative.
Mm.
Well, then you start listing out all the positives to it so your brain can see that event in a different way and see that it wasn't just the negative. And then we can create that balance.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so there's different ways, and I believe, there's something for everybody, because not every way is going to work for each person, because some people just can't wrap their brains around doing
Mhm.
doing the work a certain way. So I think it's great that there's so many different perspectives and ways to do it. I want to ask you, when you were a kid, you had your near death experience where you're going through the cancer and felt like you were going to die. And then it's 20 years later, right, when you do this whitewater rafting
Mhm.
and have the experience again. Was it different as a child versus an adult? The
Yeah,
emotions of it.
yeah, I mean, as a child, I mean, I was so little. I mean, here I am 11 years old, and it was just this visceral body feeling back then that I literally felt that I was walking on a tightrope. I mean, like, I saw both sides, life, death, and so I felt that deeply. And then that opening of feeling, I call the word God, divine. I've worked with
Mhm,
thousands of people, and I'm really honoring language. Language can be limiting for people. People might
mhm.
say God, Father, or Allah, Brahma. I mean, it's okay. So, but just that feeling, that presence that's been with me to this day. So I think when this happened, the near death whitewater rafting experience in my 30s, I had such a steeped sense of God, this presence with me. I
Mhm,
think that gave me extra comfort. And just again, when I felt that peace through my body, I think it was just easier for me to just let go. I just
mhm,
thought, you know what? I'm going to let go, surrender into that peace, whatever may come. And it gave me the courage to just let go pretty quickly I think I was really stuck deep under this
mhm,
rapid. And so I had that presence with me of God and knowing, well, if I live or die, I think this was just more of an internal feeling. I'm going to be okay.
mhm,
And it was just, I'll tell you, those words were so loud saying to me, and I'm a mystic, I'm an intuitive. I hear a lot, I see a
mhm,
lot, I see spirits every day. I hear a lot, but it was so loud. Living or dying is fine. It was really
mhm.
loud, and I just trusted that.
And I think from that experience, something you can share with people that is such a beautiful thing is letting go. Like,
Mhm,
how important it is to just let go with everything. All
mhm,
the things in our lives every single day, we wanna control all these things, and sometimes people will vent to me about this and that, and I'm just sitting there like, "Just let go." Like, d don't get so wrapped up in it, because we don't have to, right? But and I'm not saying I don't, like, I mean, we're all human, and we're all gonna have those moments, and I have moments too of getting wrapped up in things, and I'm like, "Wait a minute." Like,
mhm,
no, this doesn't matter. Just like let go, like just let everything unfold. And so I think that's probably some of the really beautiful things that you're able to bring to clients into the world, is just how to teach them how to let go.
absolutely. And I think a thought to share, as I think I mentioned a little bit ago, but just I find it helpful to tune in when you're controlling, when you're grasping, you're wanting it a certain way. It's
Mhm,
your mind, it's your ego mind. Because when we're in our mind, we're in the past, we're in the future, we're not even here, we're not present. So even noticing, oh, I'm really trying to control this situation, or grasping or pushing or resistance. When you can notice that, I think there's freedom. You step back, there's breathing room.
mhm,
And then coming back into the moment. I even share with people, even right now, can you feel your hands, your fingers? Just feel
mhm,
that energy, whatever's there right now.
mhm,
When you do that, you can't think at the same time. Your mind stops. It drops you into your body and just feel in this moment, I'm okay and here I am helps, I think, is a quick way to stop, ruminating, living in your head, just letting your mind run you, living on autopilot. And again, it's building that sense of awareness. Where am I?
Mhm. Are there any questions you push people to ask themselves during that process? I mean, you can feel your body and just kind of tune into that, but what are the questions that we can ask ourselves to get out of that state?
Mhm. Again, one of my favorite questions is just asking. I share with clients midday, once a day or twice a day. You can even put it on a post-it note. Just are you just take a break, and maybe you're working and of course you're busy or using your mind or you're planning, but just you take a break to have a sip of coffee or you take a break to go to the bathroom and
Mhm,
just can you take a break and notice, okay, have I been in my mind? Am I in my mind? Am I in the moment? Am I in the present moment in my heart, my body? Just asking that question is powerful. It gives
mhm,
you information like, wow, for the last 3 hours, yes, I've been working, but then when I'm not working, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do for dinner tonight. And then I'm thinking about this weekend. I mean, you see, our
yeah,
minds can just run endlessly. And just, oh, a reminder, okay, when I get up to go to the bathroom, I'm gonna just feel my body for a
mhm,
moment. Well, I'm feel my body being supported by the floor, walking, feel my energy moving in my body. These are easy practices to just let's try one today. Let's add one practice new to my day
mhm,
to bring me a little more breathing room, a little more spaciousness. And when you start to feel that, when let's say you integrate a 1 minute breath exercise, like I love breathing in peace coming through my body from the top of my head all the way out, breathing out stress,
mhm.
breathing in peace, breathing out stress. There's a little more breathing room. There's a stillness. There's like, oh, this is it. And once you do it, I really find you start craving that feeling sense of presence, of silence, of stillness, because
Mhm.
that's where life is.
And I think it's hard for people to change. It's hard to change our daily practices and get into the patterns of doing that, but something I've done for manifestation, which for me, if people think I'm trying to write my own story, which I'm not, I am really very soulfully leaning into what I believe is God's path for me. But I believe we can manifest these things. And when I say manifest, I mean just leaning into that path and reminding yourself. Like, so for me, manifestation is not like this magical, like witchy thing of making it happen, but it's the remembering that path that God laid for you, like remembering it daily and remembering how to lean into it and stay on it. And so for me, there've been times where I'll just set an alarm on my phone. And so it's like all the things you're saying, I could see people doing that too. Like you just set an alarm on your phone as much as you want every hour of the day or lunchtime. I mean, people set alarms for their birth control or whatever they're taking.
Mhm.
Um, and so you can set alarms for your breaks, your emotional breaks, your leaning into your body and your breath work. Like set breaks to make yourself do it, do the work.
Mhm. And deciding to add, yes, that's great. Add a practice. Here's another thought. How do you start your day? How do you start your day? How do you end your day? So starting your day, this is something I've done for years. When I wake up in the morning, alarm clock, or I wake up, I have some moments before I get out of bed, I have gratitude. And
Mhm,
I think about what I'm grateful for. And there's a lot of gratitude practices out there where you just write 5 things you're grateful for. So I think about what I'm grateful for, but here's really an important point. You also want to feel the gratefulness, the thankfulness. Those again are the highest vibrational energies. So I think about, wow, here I am. I'm alive. I have family. I have a home. I mean, wow. And then I feel that energy moving in my body. I can feel it moving up and down in my body. I just feel that. I have a few minutes of prayer. And then I may see my day. I see the flow of my day, see it flowing. And I do that before I get out of bed, and it sets the tone for my day. And the opposite is, and a lot of people do this, they wake up, Maybe they grab their phone, yikes. You know, they start thinking about, I have this and this and this and this, and you get out of bed in a stress response. You're running cortisol hormone before, you're even starting your day. So even
Yeah.
just mindfully, how do I start my day? Or how do I end my day? How do I have some moments of just feeling life? That's why we're here. I think this is the reason we are alive.
hmm No, I agree. And I think having that gratitude is really important and feeling it within your bones throughout the day. But like you're talking about people waking up and thinking about their day. And I think a lot of people wake up and they immediately think about their day and it's stressful because there's this, that, and whatever. And it's like, well, why is it stressful? It's stressful because you're seeing it that way and you are anticipating certain things to go wrong or you're anticipating how they're going to go. And so even for myself, because I do that, I anticipate things like going how they've gone before, which is not fair. And so then I try to just watch it play out in my mind in a different way and anticipate that it's going to play out totally differently. And so I may see it in my mind as like, this is how it's going to play out. It's not good. It's like, ah. And then I watch it again. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, let's watch this again. Let's watch this future event and imagine how it's going to play out and try to have it play out in a different way. And actually had something kind of like this the other day with my daughter. We homeschool part-time and she goes to school part-time. And I said, tomorrow you got to get your schoolwork done, like, because she keeps getting behind. And then we're doing a bunch on the weekends. And I was like, tomorrow, no goofing around. Like, you got to get your work done. And she's like, Mom, why are you already getting mad at me for something that hasn't even happened? You're talking about tomorrow. And I literally said to her, I was like, thank you for calling me on my shit. and then and then she goes, but I mean, it's true. You don't know if I'm gonna be good or bad.
That's so good. Oh my gosh. And that said, what you just shared, maybe the next day you have a doctor appointment, you have a difficult work situation. I mean, there could be something that's like, oh, normally, yes, stressful.
Yeah.
But again, mindfulness of, okay, you wake up and can you just take a moment and breathe? Peace through your body. If you believe, loving kindness practice, may I be at peace. If you believe in something beyond, give me peace and just invite that in and breathe that in to
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Catherine, so much for coming on and just sharing all the things about spirituality and your life experiences and a little bit about your book, Everyday Awakening. Where can people find the book?
My book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and I'm in Barnes and Noble stores throughout the country, different cities. And you can also go to my website, everydayawakening.com or catherineduncan.org. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And where can people connect with you if they want to, if you even want them
Yeah,
to?
no, that sounds great. Love to hear from anyone. So through my website, again, catherineduncan.org, and I'm all over social media. Catherine Duncan, it's Catherine Duncan, MABCC for Instagram and YouTube. I have meditations and TikTok and LinkedIn, and wow, it's all
Everywhere.
over. Hmm.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Thank you. So fun to talk to you.
Yeah, this
Thank
was really
you.
fun.
Mhm.
Mhm.